So we've looked at why feedback is so important, but now let's have a look at how do we actually give effective feedback. So there are 5 key things that we should do while giving feedback. The first is step into the other person's shoes. Understand where they're coming from, and this might give you a better understanding of how they're going to take the information and how receptive they will be to hearing it. The next is focus on creating value. At the end of the day, after feedback, you want changes and improvement, particularly if there's something that's wrong. So make sure that your conversation in the end actually creates value and change. The third aspect is stick to the facts. It's quite easy sometimes to go on perceptions or hearsay, but make sure that you stick to the facts, because then the other person can't really argue with you about whether it's there or not. Those are the facts, and it often makes the conversation a lot easier. Then, very importantly, focus on the behavior and not the person. Rather than saying to the person, you are rude, rather say, I find the way you speak to people rude. That just takes away a bit of the personal aspect to it, and you're looking at their behavior rather than them as a person. And then probably the most important is create agreements. Don't leave things hanging. When you end the conversation, make sure there's an agreement in place that makes sure there's action after the whole feedback situation. So those are 5 key aspects on how we should be giving effective feedback. Now, how do we go about doing this? So we faced sitting in front of someone, and now we've got to give the feedback. How do we package this for them? Well, the most useful way of doing it is making sure you always have an opening statement. The opening statement might be to make them feel more comfortable. It might be just to give them the context of the situation. There could be a whole lot of different reasons, but it's very, very good to give an opening statement so that they feel a bit more comfortable. Then the other important aspect, as we mentioned before, is leave with action. Make sure that when you leave that conversation, you feel and they feel that something is going to happen from this. Otherwise, it just becomes a conversation that you probably will have to repeat. Now, how do we package this? Well, there's a method called the sandwich technique. And I like using this because it's simple and it just focuses on not only the negative but the positive. And it's really like looking at a sandwich. The 2 slices of bread are the positive comments, and then the areas for development or the negative can be in the middle. So you might start a conversation by saying what they're good at, what you're pleased with, how they've improved in something, just to make them feel a bit better and more comfortable. Then you're going to give them the actual facts and discuss where there might be areas for development or problems, and then end on a positive note. Now, often that positive note might be the action that's going to take place by saying, you know what, I know you can do this. I know you can improve. You've done this in other areas. We really need you as a teacher. So therefore, it's leaving with action and a positive statement. So your opening and leaving with action actually becomes the 2 pieces of bread in the sandwich. If that doesn't work for you, there is another method. And this method is known as the situation behavior impact model. And it's very, very effective. You can use it with your learners in the classroom as well. You can use it with parents when you're giving feedback to them. But it's a very strategic way of making sure that those 5 points that we looked at are actually covered. So the first is capture the situation. So let's say you've got an issue with a teacher in a grade meeting. So you'd start by saying, in yesterday's grade meeting. So you're actually giving them where the situation, what happened. Then next you describe the behavior. Tell them what they did wrong or right. In this case, you interrupted constantly. So now they know what the situation is, and they now know what behavior you're looking at. Now this is the important part, to describe the impact. Some people, if you just left it there, in yesterday's meeting, you interrupted constantly, they'll go, well, so what? You need to show what the impact of their interruption was. So it might be a case of, this forced your colleagues to shut down. Consequently, we weren't able to discuss their ideas and arrive at a solution to our problem. So what this SBI model does is make sure that you give the overall picture. And then, of course, remember that you must leave with action. So those 2 techniques hopefully just give you a way of packaging things to make it a little bit easier to go into these situations. And it's essential to plan before the time. And of course, wherever possible, don't forget to smile. Your expressions will guide the conversation.